जय जय श्री राधे श्री बरबाधीश की जय हो। जय जय श्री राधे जी, सब वैष्णवों से सप्रेम सादर जय श्री कृष्णा, राधे राधे. This is day 43 of the reading of the Chaurasi Vaishnava, the story of the 84 Vaishnavas, and it is part 2, the story of Narahari Joshi. Once Narahari went to a village in Gujarat called Aliana, where one of his religious clients, Mahidhara, by name, was living. Mahidhara had a sister named Phulbai. Narahari told her to become a disciple of Sri Gosaiji, and then they could keep contact with each other. The brother and sister agreed and decided to invite Sri Gosaiji there so that they could become his disciples. They thanked Narahari for his mercy upon them, to guide them in the right direction to become Vaishnavas, and thus fulfilled their lives. They became very happy at the thought. Bhav Prakash. Both of them were divine souls, Sakhis of Sri Chandravadiji. In the Leela, Mahidhara's name is Kurangasakhi, Kurangakshi, and Phulbai's name is Chapalaneni. They were especially beautiful because of their stunning eyes. They became proud of their beauty, so Sri Chandravadiji cursed them to be reborn on earth. They were therefore strongly connected to the Leela. Mahidhara's wife died shortly after the wedding. Their parents also passed away. The brother and sister lived alone and well. Their father had left them enough money. When the time came for them to become Vaishnavas, they were very happy. Part 2 continued. They requested Narahari to very soon invite Sri Gosaiji to come there. When he got back to Keralu, Narahari wrote Sri Gosaiji an invitation, saying that there were a few souls in Gujarat who needed him to uplift them. Sri Gosaiji came to Keralu and stayed with Jaganath Joshi. Narahari went to Aliana and told the brother and sister they were extremely blessed because Sri Gosaiji had come to Keralu. Phulbai asked her brother what they should do next. He replied that they would mix coins and gold coins together and offering everything to Sri Gosaiji, sparing no expense in bringing him there. Bhav Prakash. I will offer so much that you won't even have to think about donations. Part 2 continued. Hearing this, Phulbai and Narahari were very pleased that Mahidhara had so much affection for Sri Gosaiji. Narahari, Phulbai and Mahidhara travelled to Keralu and humbly entreated Sri Gosaiji to come to Aliana. He did so. Mahidhara and Phulbai mixed the coins and gold coins together and offered them all to Sri Gosaiji as he entered the village. There were so many coins spread all around that the villagers got to pick up their share. Many musical instruments and singers accompanied him as he arrived in their home. He told them to bathe, and then he initiated them with the Lord's name and Brahma Sambandha. There had been a Sri Thakurji in their home from before, whom they had been worshipping in a limited manner. He was a child Swarup. Sri Gosaiji bathed this Swarupa in the 5 nectars and established his worship in their home. Mahidhara and Phulbai gave Sri Gosaiji lots and lots of monetary offerings, and he stayed in their home for 5 days. They learnt all about the ways of Seva in the path of grace. Then Sri Gosaiji left for Dwarka. Both brother and sister thanked Narahari again and again for bringing them to the path of grace. We have been reborn with the grace of Sri Gosaiji, they said. Bhav Prakash. The company of Vaishnavas has this effect. Just as a wet cloth moistens dry cloth placed next to it, from their association Vaishnavism can ensue. The Pulindis, or simple forest-dwelling ladies, came to enjoy the Lord's loving company through their location close to Sri Giriraji. The very best association to have is that of Vaishnavas who have divine devotional qualities. Part 2 continued. Narahari then took his leave of the brother and sister and went back to his village of Keralu. Jaganath Joshi remarked to him, "It would be difficult to describe the love that Mahidhara and Phulbai have. They became very nice Vaishnavas. It is not surprising, though, that with Sri Gosaiji's grace they soon developed the character of great devotees." Part 3. One day, not long after, a fire began to spread through the village of Aliana. That morning, Narahari had gone to perform his ablutions and bathe in the local lake. He was collecting flowers in a basket and was coming home when he came to know that the fire was spreading through Aliana. He thought to himself that, since Mahidara and Pulbai had only just become Vaishnavas, they might think that they were suffering even though they had just become Vaishnavas, and that if they took this attitude, then they might fall from their chosen path. He chose a nice clean spot of ground, scattered some tulsi leaves thereupon, sprinkled some water all around them in little indentations, and ordered that fire to be extinguished. When he felt that the fire had gone out and Mahidara's house was safe, he collected some more flowers and tulsi leaves and went home. Many days later, Narahari again went to visit Mahidara and Aliana. He and his sister told Narahari that there had been a terrible fire there, but through Sri Gosaji's grace their house had been spared. They said that they were saved because they were Vaishnavas, otherwise who knows what might have become of them. Narahari agreed that Sri Gosaji is most compassionate and always protects his Vaishnavas, who thus always remain fulfilled in every way. Having dispersed their doubts completely, he returned to Keralu. That day, after completing their Seva, Jaganath, Joshi and Narahari were sitting down. Narahari told his brother the whole story about the fire and how he had done the little ceremony with the tulsi leaves and water in order to save Mahidara's home. Jaganath Joshi remarked, "Being so stubborn and forcing the Lord to make so much effort is completely improper. This is not the way of the path of grace. The Lord is all-powerful. He alone decides what will happen." Narahari defended himself. "I was not stubborn with the Lord, and I did not try to force his hand. My only thought was that, because of Mahidara and Pulbai had only recently become Vaishnavas, if they were to suffer because of the fire, they might begin to wonder why this happened so soon after their initiation. They might lose faith in the path. They have just found faith in Sri Gosaji in the path of grace, and I did not want that love to change. I wanted them to think that they were saved because of their coming to the path. I did what I did for the sake of their firm faith. I did not have any other motive." The two brothers, realizing that the Lord works in curious ways and that nothing can happen without his wish, sat down and smiled to themselves. Jaganath, Narahari, Joshi and their mother were all great Vaishnavas. They did whatever the Lord wanted. By their association, Mahidara and Pulbai gained full faith in the Lord and began to serve him most lovingly. After a short time, the Lord began to communicate with them directly. Thus concludes Varta 31, the story of Narahari Joshi, Jaganath Joshi and their mother. They are all three included in this one story. They were great Vaishnavas, and there is truly no end to their tale. Varta 32, the story of Rana Vyas, a Sanchora Brahmin from Godhra. In the eternal Leela, Rana Vyas is Sri Swaminiji's Sakhi named Induleka. She has a Sakhi named Nagavelika. When Rana Vyas turned 12, he became friends with the renunciate. That wandering monk had just been to all the four most important pilgrimage spots in India, and he recounted to Rana Vyas the greatness of Sri Badrikashram, Sri Jaganath Puri, Sri Rangaji and Sri Ranachorlalji. After hearing these tales, he got up in the middle of the night and just set off to visit all these places. On the way to Badrikashram, he suffered a lot, but he did get to have the sight of Sri Badrinathji. However, he experienced no joy whatsoever because he saw all the rituals that were being performed there, and the way in that place was fraught with danger of death. Then he went to Sri Jaganath Puri. After having the Lord's sight there, he was a little pleased. After this he became very ill, and it took him a month to recover. He thought it best to leave that place with the reasoning that if he became ill again he might easily die. So he left and travelled south, where he had the sight of Sri Ranganathji. He was a little confused as to how he should be looking at the Lord, because he was so enormous that if he looked at his feet he could not see his head, and vice versa. He decided to proceed to Dwarka. There he had the sight of Sri Ranachorlalji. He wanted to touch the Lord's feet, but the priest told him that he would have to make a large donation to have that privilege. The priests all kept the money for themselves. Rana Vyas decided to leave from there as well, because, as he reasoned, if one's consciousness begins to focus on faults, then one's happiness is destroyed. He returned to his home in Godhra. His parents had become very old. Rana Vyas had been away for 8 years. The parents asked him, "Oh, son, where have you been all this time? If you had been at home, we could have arranged your marriage. Now please stay at home." Rana Vyas replied that he intended to remain a celibate, for he had no reason to get married. "I must conquer my senses," he argued. "I don't wish to descend into the hell of marriage." His parents kept quiet after this, and they soon died. He performed their last rites, but was pleased that he now had no more ties. "I can do what I wish," he thought. "I do have a few thousand rupees." In this way he became proud of his self-control and his money. In this prideful way he spoke to no one, and everyone in the village and surrounds spoke of him as a perfected devotee. In the first instance, Jaganath Joshi had taken initiation from Rana Vyas, but afterwards had, on his mother's instructions, become the disciple of Sri Acharyaji. Rana Vyas was not really very intelligent, but he thought to himself, "Everyone here is stupid. I will travel to Varanasi, where I will have a chance to discuss with very intelligent and qualified men." Taking some money and his inflated ego with him, he went to the place where they all used to meet. He was soon defeated and became ashamed of himself. "I will drown myself in the Ganga in the middle of the night," he decided. That evening, without eating, he went to sit on Hanuman Ghat by the side of the Gangaji. He decided to wait until the middle of the night, when no one would notice if he drowned himself. At that very time, Sri Acharyaji came there. One of the accompanying Vaishnavas asked him whether someone who drowned themselves in the river would get a good fate. Sri Acharyaji replied that if anyone was full of ego or had argued with someone, then there was no good reward for them. They would be reborn as a snake. It was the sin of suicide. Anyone who died in this way would reappear as a wicked being, or they would be diseased. If they were humble or renounced, then died in this manner, there was a chance of redemption, but then only if they had the Lord in their heart and mind at the time of passing. Otherwise theirs was a degrading result. Rana Vyas was listening to all of this and concluded that Sri Acharyaji was a great personality. He approached Sri Acharyaji and said, "It is most fitting that this Vaishnava just now put these questions to you. I had been sitting here hungry since the morning with the intention of drowning myself in the middle of the night. Please now tell me how I can be uplifted. I take shelter in you." Sri Acharyaji said, "But you have initiated some people with the Lord's name. You let people call you master. You think you are yourself to be very worthy. So why are you asking to be my disciple?" Rana Vyasji replied, "Yes, I have been very egotistical, but when I went to Varanasi, I was totally defeated by all the other wise men there. That is why I am ready to sacrifice myself into the Gangaji. I know I must have some kind of good fortune by the fact that I have just now had your sight. I am humble and I am pathetic. Please grace me." Sri Acharyaji instructed him to go and bathe in the Gangaji. Sri Acharyaji then initiated him with the Lord's name and Brahmasambandh and told him to go back to all the places where he had be defeated, for now he would be successful in debate. That night Rana Vyas cooked, made offerings, and then accepted Mahaprasad. He was blissed out. In the morning he again bathed, then went to Sri Acharyaji and bowed down to him. He taught Rana Vyas his Chaturshloki treatise and told him to use it to defeat the other Brahmins. Rana Vyas did indeed, by the force of Sri Acharyaji's divine form, manage to defeat everyone there in debate. Afterwards he came back to Sri Acharyaji and bowed to him. Sri Acharyaji told him that, even though he had defeated so many, he should still not be prideful, teaching him that anything that he was proud about would be destroyed. Rana Vyas promised that he would not be proud any more, recognizing that pride had been his downfall. He asked Sri Acharyaji to give him some divine blessing, because he had already wasted so much of his life. Sri Acharyaji told him to find a Swarupa of Sri Thakurji and to bring him there. Rana Vyas managed to purchase one Swarupa, and Sri Acharyaji bathed him in the 5 nectars and established his Seva as Rana Vyas's responsibility. Sri Acharyaji spoke to him, "You have been wandering around a lot. Now go home and serve the Lord there nicely." Rana Vyas took his leave, bowing low, went home and began to serve his Lord. For today, this is where we will take rest from the Vartaji. Shri Giriraj Dharan Ki Jai, Shri Vallabhadisha Ki Jai, and we will continue tomorrow with part 1 of the story of Rana Vyas. Sab Vaishnavan ko Jai Shri Krishna. Jai Jai Shri Radhe.